Tactical Team.
Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is the Orc Tactical Team. And this question here comes from Victor Eriksson from the Warhammer YouTubers Google Plus page. And what his question is Malorian, I've been noticing that in battle reports that people are putting things sideways. What's up with that? It doesn't make any sense. And this is something where, when you look at it, man, it just looks completely wrong. Just what are you doing with this? And the first place that I really saw this was in 40K. I would be looking across, and all of a sudden I'm seeing the opponent is having their vehicles going sideways. It's like, well, why are you doing that? You mean I could just shoot your side armor? This is ridiculous. But the whole reason behind it is that whenever you have a game mechanic where you get a free pivot and a unit is longer than it is wide or wider than it is long, you get this inherent speed advantage just by deploying on the line sideways. Because what really happens is that if you're like this, and you pivot on the center, and you go like this, you are that much closer, and you've just gained that distance. So, you know, in 40K, it's pretty simple. The vehicle turns, flies, drives up, whatever. What you see this happening here in the fantasy world is, say, something with, you know, the steam tank, or you could be also having that with the A-bomb, the hell pit, or you could be having that with the warp, what is it, the doom wheel. These things here, you know, if you really want it, so you're getting them up the board faster, well, they're going to be going 3d6 either way, but basically, just by putting them sideways, now it works out to being about like 3d6 plus 2, which is just better. And I mean, most people, when they look at this, is like, well, it just looks dumb. That's just kind of wrong. But it's just the system, and people kind of abusing the system. And I'll get to kind of like the ethics of it at the end. I want to talk about the tactical side first, and then I'll talk about the more practical application after and what it's going to mean in a tournament. Now, that's one thing there. We want to get a speed bonus is the way they're going to do that. Another thing people might be going after is actually a range bonus. And where you normally see this is actually with war machines. Now, war machines are a very weird one right now because they don't have bases, and it gets really kind of silly with some of this stuff. But some of them, you can really see from looking at them that they are longer than they are wide. Probably the biggest one you see all the time with this is the Hellblaster. A Hellblaster has a range of 2 feet. So by definition, on the first turn, if you go first, you can't shoot it, because unless the opponent had scouts or vanguards or something like that, you just can't shoot anything because everything's out of range. Unless you take that Hellblaster, you deploy it sideways, right on the line, pivot. Oh, what do you know? Now I'm within 23 inches of you, and I can shoot you, assuming they deployed on the line. And it's just, come on. It's one of the things, again, where it just seems so wrong, but the game mechanic is there. The war machine can pivot for free, and because it is longer than it is wide, deploying on the line like that, it can do that and get off those shots. And it can be very frustrating, especially when you say, like, okay, he'll be getting the first turn, but at least I won't be being shot with that Hellblaster. And then all of a sudden you get shot to pieces. It can be very frustrating. But it's one of those things you just have to be kind of prepared for. For this one here, what can you do to prepare for this one? Well, if you see this, and especially if you see them deploy sideways, which actually, in the whole deployment scheme, you might not be able to catch, because normally you have the back and forth, war machines go somewhere near the end. So in that case, it's like, well, it could be already too late. So basically, if you're up against somebody and you know they're sneaky, just deploy, you know, not your full foot up, 10 inches. Just to make sure if he does try this ploy, then you're safe either way. Now, there's one more reason why somebody might be going sideways, and I touched this on my whole cannon one, and that's the whole idea. Where's the defense against cannons? And the whole idea of it is that you have a cannon that's going to land and then bounce, and you have a line in between. Now, the longer you are, the better the chance that this line will overlap your base. So if you are, say, something like a Chimera that's very long, but then fairly narrow. If you're looking straight at that cannon, there is a long line for that line of the cannon to land on, and then you get cranked in the face. Meanwhile, if you just turn to the side, that spot of you, that area is a lot smaller, and so the probability of that cannon hitting you is a lot smaller. So it's just purely defensive and purely math. This one you see a lot more. It's getting a little bit more popular now that there's more monsters out there. People are wanting to defend themselves against cannons, so you're starting to see this. As well, you also see the applications where you had the Chimera being sideways in front of the Demon Prince and stuff like this because of how the cannon works again, where if it doesn't kill a monster, it stops. So if I have something sacrificial, I can be putting it in front. As long as you don't kill that monster first, you won't continue on to the thing that's more important. So those are the three main things that you're going to see. The speed advantage, the range advantage, and then also just purely defensive. Now, if you're hearing this and you're thinking of using this, you have to really keep in mind that this could really change the way that your opponent is going to deal with you. I know for my part, I know the rules fairly well. I know a lot of loopholes in the rules. You know, I'm kind of known sometimes for my building shenanigans and how I can really use them and abuse them and bounce around and be very annoying. But depending on the opponents, I won't use that stuff because I don't want it to, you know, go a little bit downhill. If I see someone who's playing more for fun, I'm going to go and play their way. And man, I got to say, if you start off the game and your Hell Pit is sideways, or if your Hell Blaster is sideways, game on. It is open season, and I'm going to be using every trick in the book. So realize that even though these things can give you an advantage, it might actually give you a disadvantage because now your opponent is going to be like, all right, I'm going to teach this son of a bitch and use all of his tricks against you. Or if nothing else, you have to maybe keep in mind that this could actually hurt your sportsmanship. Now, there is also even some other parts where it could really just break down into a massive rules discussion. And this could really hurt you as far as turns go. You know, if you have to stop and like, okay, I swivel like this, and they say, well, no, that doesn't make sense. Well, actually, if you look at the rules here, blah, 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 well, you could be losing, you know, what, 20 minutes of your game time, and then all of a sudden you don't have enough time to finish the game, and depending on what the win conditions are, that could even hurt you again. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Finally, the last thing is that some of these can be very gray. The one that I think is probably the best example of this is the Dwarf Organ Gun. Because whereas you have the Hell Blaster, which is fairly long and fairly narrow, it's very clear that if you turn that thing, it is closer on the one side, and now I gain that distance. However, the Organ Gun for the Dwarves, not so obvious. It is longer than it is wide, but it also looks fairly square. So that's another thing where if you go and you spin that one, the guys get, whoa, 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 what's going on? Because something like this, you're not really gaining an inch, you're gaining like half a centimeter. And so stuff like that can really get down to like, are you sure, measuring it out and all that stuff. So for those who are wondering what this is all about, that's what it really is. It is legit. It is all legal by the rules. I mean, who knows what's going to change in 9th, but as it is right now, there is that reason for going sideways. And if you are going to use it, know that that was an advantage, but there's some inherent disadvantages that go along with it. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Bye.